Welcome, 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 everyone, to another episode of the Aligned as Fuck podcast. This is a human design experiment where we lean into all things leadership alignment and sometimes human design. I am super excited because my guest today is not just somebody that I adore on every level and admire. She is also one of my best friends and just somebody that I can trust heart and soul. And whoo, it's going to be an emotional day today. We were talking about this before the show. I'm already getting emotional just knowing that I get to introduce you to her and I get to share her heart with you. But before we start, for those of you that may be joining us for the first time, I'm Candy Brew and I'm your host. And this is our space to get raw, real, gritty, to have the conversations that matter and often the conversations we avoid. And so never know where we're going to go. It is the ultimate rabbit hole dive. We just let it take us where we need to be. And so, with that, before I tell you anything about how amazing she is, let me welcome my beautiful guest, Minette Riordan, to the show and say thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Mwah, super grateful.
Oh, I am so grateful. My heart's already overflowing. Minette, Dr. Minette Riordan is Riordan. I always say your name. Say that for me in a way that
It,
I can say it right.
Riordan, like a piece of rye
Riordan. I
bread.
know that, and I know that I've known you for years. It's Riordan. It's Dr. Minette Riordan. I'm going to get that in
It's all
my
good.
days. Dr. Minette is truly, um, she's just masterful. She's genius at so many different things, but more so in her ability to really help people come back to their creative dance, to the way they get to express their art. And I think one of the things that we are going to lean into today is maybe dispelling a little bit around creativity and art and what that means. Because if you know Dr. Manette at all, you know that she is a big believer that we all have artistry inside of us and that we all are here to be creative expressions. And so, what she does to help activate, especially women as they're going through different transitions in their life, to bring them back into their truth and their creativity is nothing short of amazing. She is absolutely brilliant at this work. She is a brilliant artist herself. And so it is such an honor to have her here today to be in conversation. So thank you again for being here. And let me start because I want to ask a little bit about how you realize the necessity, the magic, the path to creativity that is lacking for so many that started by cracking you open first.
Yeah, such a great question. Thank you. So it was back when I still had my publishing company in Plano, Texas. I had a parenting magazine for a long time. And I had a friend who was like, we should do this X project. I think we were decorating votive candles or something. And that one re-entry into creative expression broke me wide open and sent me down a rabbit hole of what else is possible. And from there, I was on someone else's mix. I'm like, what the heck is mixed media art? You don't even need to know what it is. But at the time, I'm like, I don't know. And now I would say I'm a mixed media artist. But it sent me down the path. And this was the moment in time where Blogspot and Blogger were exploding, and there was so much access to information online. And there was this wonderful woman from Victoria, BC, who had a mixed media blog. And I was on her blog, and she had a guest artist on there talking about something called Zentangle. And I'm
Mm.
like, what the heck is this Zentangle stuff? It looks really cool. And Zentangle is a meditative form of drawing simple, repetitive patterns. It is so soothing to the brain. But when you talk to the now, literally 20 years later, they just had their 20th anniversary, the thousands of people who have become certified Zentangle teachers around the globe, 9/10 of those people will say, this is the thing that brought me back to my inner artist. This was the process that told me I'm creative, I can draw, that made us shed all the stories of a lifetime of creativity scars, as Brene Brown calls them. And from Zentangle, it led to this and to that. And then I took a beautiful painting meditation class with a woman named Whitney Freya. And from that, I'm like, oh, I'm a painter. And I
Mm.
would be like, I'm a painter, or I'm a Zentangle artist, or I'm a this or that. But it was never, I'm an artist. It was a long time. I was already selling my art before I claimed the role of artist. And I was that person who I've always been creative. In high school, I took the art classes. I tried lots of different things, had a really brutal art teacher my freshman year in university. Art was not my major. This was an elective. He gave me a bad grade on something, and I'm like, well, fuck that shit, right? Like, I'm here to just learn and grow. What do you mean you're giving me a bad grade? And never made art again for 20 years, right? Like, I channeled all of my creative expression into writing. I got my dissertation in literature. I published 3 books. And now I'm struggling to find my writing voice because I've been so deeply steeped in the visual arts for so long. But I think it was the recuperation of the lost artist was the moment of going, oh, I didn't even remember that class. I didn't remember this story. Before the call, Candy and I were talking about we were both members of an organization, and I was speaking at that event in San Antonio, Texas, in front of about 150 people about creativity. And before that, I went to see my dad, who lives nearby in Texas, and I found a sketchbook from high school. And I would tell people all the time, they'd say, I'm not creative, I can't draw. And I would say, well, you may not be able to draw. I can't draw either. I still say I don't really draw very well, but that does not diminish me as an artist or as a creative. But I found this sketchbook from high school, and I'm like, holy fuck, Candy, I can draw.
Right. There's
Like,
something powerful about that, isn't there? I mean,
I'm like, what part of me like buried this and has been telling this totally different story for decades? And I wouldn't say, for me, drawing is a skill that anyone can learn. And I had a phenomenal high school teacher. But then I forgot all of that because one person took me out.
oh, there's so okay. I'm gonna get emotional on this show because we're gonna hit on all the things. Um, First of all, I want to unpack for anyone that's listening that just felt that in their entire being. I still to this day say I'm so grateful my seventh grade teacher came before my junior high school teacher because I would never have written another word if they would have been reversed.
Mm,
She lit me up. I still have, and I remember when we connected on Facebook, I sent her a picture. I said, do you remember this? She goes, I know the writing. You do not still have that. I had a whole collection of poetry that I had written, and
mm,
I gave it to her because I wanted someone to see it. I wanted to be seen. She took pencil and in the margins wrote her comments and notes and things. And it was
mm.
beautiful. She didn't touch the work itself,
Yeah.
but then put a cover sheet on it where she told me, please keep writing. Please, you have such
Wow.
a way and gift with words and what you're doing versus junior year, where my honors English teacher, who I never got along with, took a red pen to a poem that I had submitted for a contest and
I have
completely
those too.
destroyed my poem and then made me get up in front of class to talk about what it meant. But I used to write what I call cathartic writing, which
Yeah.
is I would write things that I wasn't ready for until years later when I did my healing that I didn't know what
Yeah.
I just knew what it wasn't. And so there was this whole battle and turmoil, but I remember shelving that. And so for any of you that felt that moment of fuck, somebody told me I couldn't, and I
Yeah.
put my art on a shelf.
Hmm.
I want you to take like a deep breath right now and just exhale because I want to. This is one of the things, and we were talking about this before because I also think this is a connection because you made a comment before the show that I want to bring to this. I wasn't able to call myself an artist. Like I can remember even at 3 years old, people going, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Which I thought was a stupid question, and I would be like, "It
It's
doesn't
still
matter."
a stupid question. I'm 60 and it's still a
It's
stupid question.
it's a stupid question. First of all, it
Yeah.
implies that the doing is your value. So many things.
Yeah.
I do a whole show on that. One of the things that was interesting, my mom was always like, you had such an interesting response. And I'm like, yeah, because I was like, I'm going to change the world. At 3 years old, I was like, I'm going to change the
Yeah.
world. And people would patronize me and be like, oh, sweetie, that's, I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to change the world. And it would be 3 times. I would get very adamant. Then I would put my hands on my hips and I'm like, I'm going to change the world and I'm going to write a book. And my first book I wrote, well, actually, my first book I wrote when I was 12. I just didn't get it published till it was 40. It was the children's book I wrote for my sister. But when I published both books at 40, my mom's like, it took you long enough for someone who always knew you're going to be a writer. And I remember saying, but I needed this story to tell, right? Like I always knew there was something, but I always had those moments that felt very limiting that to your point, I don't know if I would have called myself a writer. Writing
Mhm.
was my writing was my safe space. Writing was for me.
Yeah.
Yet to call myself an artist, even though growing up, all I wanted to be was an artist. And I have an old sketchbook from as well that I'm like, I was pretty good at sketching and drawing. But again, all of the conditioning. And I think about the parallel. And so I want to already make a huge leap here because I want to dig even more into what you just said. And I want to make a leap. How many of you struggle with identifying as an artist? Because I want to talk about what an artist really is and your definition of it, and struggle with calling yourself a leader. And I think that there's a parallel, perhaps, because we were talking about this before the show,
Yeah.
that difficulty in saying I'm a leader. And I
Yeah.
think there's a common thread between them, at least in my mind. And I'm curious your thoughts. So let's kind of break that down a little bit and talk about
Sure.
what is an artist, what is a leader, and is there a path, a correlating path between them?
Yeah, I love that. So if you make art, you're an artist. If you lead other people, you are a leader. Like, can we just dumb it down here, right? To like, I mean, it's like, and I say that to myself.
Right.
And I think the hang up that if we believe that to be an artist means we have to have our art on a wall in a museum,
Mhm.
that to be a leader means I'm running a big company or a big organization or a nonprofit, but you can be a leader of one. You can be an artist for yourself. Like I loved what you said about writing. Writing is for me. So in my life, painting is for me. So people come into my house, they buy my art. It's actually hanging now in a gallery downtown, which I never thought I would do. And
Makes
if it
me so
sounds,
happy. Can we just pause
thank
there and let
you.
me celebrate my friend? Because I did not know that. And oh my God, does that make me so happy for you? That
Thank
just let
you.
my heart just bust wide open on that. Oh my
Thank
God, I'm so happy
you.
for you.
Thank you. It was it took a lot of courage to not to hang my art, but to take it to someone else to be approved to hang. Right? It's that, because then all of a sudden I'm right back in that with the high school English teacher that redlined my poem or the university art teacher that redlined my art. Like all those stories are still there. I also had a very, very critical mother who had a master's in fine art, right? And her art was real art and mine was not, right? So there's so much emotional baggage there. But when I let go of all of that, at the end of the day, if you make art, you are an artist. There is no requirement or no dictionary definition that says you're required to sell your art or get paid for leading in
Can
order to
we
be a leader.
qualify something though, too? Because I think this is also something that gets people hung up. When you
Mhm.
say art, what do you mean? Because
Yeah,
I think
I'm going to
people
pull
think
this
art
back
is
together.
just
Mhm.
is just I don't paint, I don't write, I don't see, I don't do art. And
Yeah.
how do you define art?
Yeah, art for me is creative expression. And so that can look like gardening, interior design. Like, you walk into somebody's house and you're like, oh my God, it feels so amazing in here, right? It's entertaining, it's cooking. Like, it can be anything that is a unique expression of your own creative genius. And I would argue that leadership is exactly the same, that the greatest leaders
Yep.
and the greatest artists are creating and leading from the soul and the absolute, authentic, aligned truth of who they are. And it takes creativity. So IBM did a study, oh, it's been probably 15 or 20 years ago now, that's still quoted all the time about the number one trait that companies are seeking in leadership and new hires is creativity. It was the number one skill on LinkedIn for 3 years running, and it's still in the top 10 is creativity. So I also want to make a distinction between creativity and art. Creativity is problem solving. It's putting innovative things in together in new ways, whereas art is the manifestation of a creative idea,
Ooh,
right?
ooh, I love that. That oh, it's
Thank
so
you.
juicy. That's awesome.
Thank
And I
you.
want you to think about that. We all have gifts that
Yeah.
we brought into this world.
Yep.
And we have gifts that solve problems. It's what
Mhm.
we all have a unique piece of the puzzle. We are all here
Yep.
to offer our gifts and service to
Yep.
solve problems that help others in some capacity.
Mhm.
That's humanity. That's the human thread,
Yep.
right? We do not lead in isolation. We do not exist in isolation. It
And
is
we don't
our
create in
connection. You
isolation.
can't create, right? Because
Nope.
creativity, and I love that you just said creativity is the problem solving,
Yeah.
art is
Manifestation.
the way that it
Like
is expressed,
Steve
right? We all
Steve
are artists.
Jobs. We are Steve Jobs. Like think about his two things about him. His capacity to move people from the stage, right, was an art.
Yep,
Um, so Steve Martin is another one. Like we could go have a whole litany of
yep.
Steves, and I'm sure, but also we think about the first time. I'll give a very specific example of how art and leadership are the same. I knew who Jackson Pollock was, studied his art in art history, like saw pictures of his art. I'm like, yeah, whatever, like not interested, not my style. And then I stood in front of a Jackson Pollock painting at the Getty Museum and was in such deep awe of the emotional impact. That's what leaders do.
Mhm.
Also, the first time I saw a real Van Gogh, the first time I walked through Georgia O'Keeffe's museum in Santa Fe, standing in front of Picasso's Guernica and the museum in Spain, right? Like seeing these incredible artists in person, you feel the emotion and the energy. Great leaders do exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah, because
Exactly the same
it's
thing.
about moving people. It's about
Yes.
inspiring, sparking.
Yeah.
Leadership is not a power over guiding, telling people
No.
what to do. Leadership is carving a path that ignites curiosity. It
Mhm.
ignites inspiration. It ignites your ability to tap into your own artistry and express those
Yeah.
gifts forward. And so I love that because I absolutely, and I know you and I were on a summit together that was all about the well-being connected to
Yeah.
creativity and redefining creativity. I think
Mhm.
people say I'm not a creative being. Human beings at their core are creative beings. It is part
Yeah,
of being human. Like
it
you
is.
don't get to have the human experience and not be
Yeah.
creative. It's like it's not like it was only bequeathed to a few people. It's like you're knighted as we as human beings are co-creators of our life. We are
Mhm.
creating the trajectory. Like
Yeah.
we are creating. This is the thing I think people really don't understand is we're offering there's an opportunity to intentionally create
Yes.
versus being a byproduct of what you're creating because you're
Yeah.
asleep at the wheel.
I nobody talks about the artistry of science. When we think about vaccines, we think about the fact that kids don't have polio. When we think about the artistry of technology, and we live in a technical world right now, we're all up in arms. Some people are. I'm loving every minute of it. The artistry of artificial intelligence, right? That doesn't replace leadership, right? But it becomes a powerful mastermind partner. But I think we forget that engineers, as you know, are so creative. Software developers are so creative. Their capacity to solve problems through a unique language is an expression of artistry. And the definition of artistry is just skill or talent,
Mhm.
right? As opposed to art, which has been capitalized, commercialized, monetized. All the joy is taken out of it. This great book came out a couple of years ago called Your Brain on Art. And I've
Mm,
never been so happy to read a book in my life because it affirmed with psychology and science everything I know to be true about the healing power of art, and that art is the third leg of the stool of well-being. The
mm.
first two being exercise and healthy food and, rest, right? So there's physical well-being, but creativity and creative expression are the third leg of the stool of well-being. Like we cannot thrive without giving voice to our form of creativity.
Oh, that's so powerful because think about that, right? And so think about this in the context of what we as individuals are here to
Mhm.
offer in a collective capacity.
Yeah.
And I think about it kind of as three C's, right? There's creativity, there's connection, and there's this whole like way we collaborate and this thread, because none of us are isolated by ourselves. And I think
No.
about, again, it's so funny to me because people, we walk around all the time going, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of life? I actually think it's really stupidly simple. You are
Yeah.
here to put into service the gifts you brought into this world. As Wayne Dyer would say, don't
Yeah.
die with your music still in you.
Yeah.
Don't die with that artistry still in you. Don't die with that art, that creativity, that ability. What happens is, and I want to tap back into even some of the AI piece because I think it's interesting. We were just talking about this on another podcast episode that I did with Ashley Connell. We were talking about how people think AI is taking their jobs and AI is taking, actually, when you understand the significance of what AI is creating in
Yeah.
terms of opportunity, it's taking away all of the shit that's keeping you numb and it's keeping all of the shit that's putting noise on top of your actual gifts, that it's taking all of the busy, it's taking all of the mindless, it's taking, it can be a great mastermind partner that can help
It's so
like
good.
find language and do the things, but
Yeah.
AI actually is freeing you up
It
to
is.
finally come home
Yeah.
and tap into that magic and that creativity and that artistry
Yeah.
that I would gather if I were to just randomly throw a stat out, 95% of the population has
Yeah.
been so removed from.
Yeah.
What happens when, so you've seen this for yourself, and
Mhm.
this is what you help other people do, you help women in transition do. What happens when people remember their creative magic?
They light up. They light up. And art simply becomes a tool for accessing the unconscious knowing within, as opposed to a project. It becomes the joy of the process. It gets us back into the journey. The biggest challenge with adults that I see is they are so stuck in I'm an expert. And reconnecting to art makes us have to draw like a kindergartner, right? And have to be in beginner's mind. And we actually have to make mistakes, right? And it's true in leadership as well. We have to make mistakes. We have to fuck up. We have to say the wrong thing. We have to exclude somebody and them come back to us and say, whoa, you didn't represent me, right? For us to learn and grow. It's the same with art, is the approach is beginner's mind. And I think this is the peoples are so stuck in one, perfectionism, two, in fear of judgment, that they never even try to give voice to creative expression, right? Sharing your creativity is the hardest part of the journey.
Well, yeah,
And
because
I'm
I mean, we
and
talk.
I'm guilty of of
Well,
all
we
of
all are, right?
this.
Because we've
Yeah.
got the conditioning and programming. And I will say, and I mean, for those of you that
Yeah.
don't know, Minette's a 4-6 projector. And so her six journey very much has gone through some of that trial and tribulation. And she's had a period where she's had to learn that failure is actually her superpower, being the amplified three in her first phase. And what's interesting about that, though, is we have a culture that very
Uh-huh.
much things need to be buttoned up perfect. You got to be the expert when I think, and it was interesting because when I used to do a mastermind with Brendan Burchard and then some other things, he would always say, he's like, you're not afraid to fail, you're afraid to be a beginner. And we
Yeah.
talk about so much we're afraid to fail. We're not afraid to fail. We're afraid to be vulnerable. We're
Yeah.
afraid to be messy. We're afraid to, and you and I have a shared friend, Jennifer Huff, who loves to say, be the cosmic 3-year-old on the adventure, right? Like
Yeah.
we're afraid to be childlike. We get
Yes.
so busy in this narrative of adulting. And I would
Yeah.
offer that adulting is the antithesis of creativity and exploration and curiosity because we have
Yeah.
this very rigid way that
What if it
says,
didn't have to be?
"Ugh,
Because I've never had more abundant flow of ideas in my life than I have in the last 5 years or
yep,
so.
yep,
Right? Post menopause, I turned 60 this year. There's more spaciousness, there's more choice, there's more all kinds of things. There's more letting go of roles that I thought I had to play. I'm an empty nester. Yay. There's like all this magic that happens as we get older for both men and women. But the biggest magic is there's space in our brains in a different way, right? And so, what if adulting were the adventure?
yeah, right. Right. Well, and I love the word I want to come back to in that because it's a word that's been showing up for me and it's not a word that has been easy for me. Let's just put it that way. I'm a Manny Chen with a shit ton of power. And
Mm-hmm.
please, we all know when my switches go off, take cover. It's the Mary Poppins Admiral Boone lighting up the cannon and everything going flying, right? It's the space, it's the energy of spaciousness. It's
Yeah,
the we are so afraid, and I'm speaking from my own difficulty in being vulnerable in spaciousness, in being
yeah,
still, in allowing ourselves room for creativity to whisper to us. Because I have
yeah,
found, and one of the things that showed up, and this was something based on what you just said, um, that was when that decision to that writing was for me became so prolific was it was a year ago fall. Yeah, it was a year ago in November. I realized I had writer's block so bad. I don't even know what to call it. It wasn't writer's block.
I remember that.
Writing
Yeah,
is my joy. Writing
right,
is my safe space. Writing is where I get to be vulnerable and I get to go deep. And like I write for me, yet somewhere I
right.
got to
When
write
it
for me.
becomes work,
It
when it
did, and it
becomes
became for
work,
everybody else. And it was, I remember
mhm,
sitting in that spacious energy,
yeah,
and all of a sudden a whisper came over me that said, what if I just write for me? What if I
yeah,
fucking stop giving a rat's ass about, not that I didn't still feel compelled to share it, because I very much am clear that now there are pieces I write that don't,
right. But it's different.
because
There's a
I write for
different
me.
energetic. It's the same with my painting. I paint for me.
Yes.
I don't want to ever do another commission.
No.
My tiger that I did for our friend Tina was the last commission.
Yep.
And the product, I was so happy. And the process was not joyful because I'm trying to get into someone else's
Right.
head.
Well, and I think
Right?
about Liz Gilbert saying that in Big Magic. I've listened to that
Hmm.
on repeat like 4 times the last because I needed it.
Yeah, so
Was the
good.
fact that if Eat, Pray, Love would have been for others, it wouldn't have been Eat, Pray, Love. Like
Right.
we need to understand that we write. The
Yes.
only way that we create those connection points in our creativity is when it's right. It's our
Yeah.
art. It's for us.
Yeah.
And then we can choose, do I want to let others into this space?
Yeah.
But when you change that lens,
Yes.
when I wake up now at 2 in the morning and can write 5 blog posts in like boom, 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 because now I'm writing for me.
Yeah.
I got a lot of shit to say.
Yeah. Totally. And writing used to come easy, but now I'd rather paint, right? So it's like, finding my way. But we can make this so simple. So with cooking. And as a single woman, you get this. As a mother of four, I got this. There's a point where cooking is just not fucking joyful. And I used to love to cook. It was a creative expression. But after a couple of decades of everyone asking me what's for dinner, I lost my joy in cooking and I didn't want to cook. Now, when I cook, I get to cook to please me. not to have to feed everyone else. And it's brought the joy back. I still don't want to do it every day because I don't have to.
See, and it's the
Um,
opposite for me because as someone who's single, who's 50,
it's
almost 50
hard to
years old,
cook.
for
Yeah.
me, I'm Italian, first of all. So
Yes.
I
You
cook
need
for an
people.
army, and then I'm eating it for the next few. So I find my joy again when I have spaces. My family and I, we get together at least once a month and we
Yeah.
rotate when I get to cook for others. When I
Oh,
have
it's way more
friends
joyful.
over,
Yes.
I still get to cook for me, but it's a way that I get to express myself that
Right.
it's on the rare occasion. Then there are the rare occasions when I'm like, I just went to the other day. I made a filet mignon for me and did
Yeah.
it in a cast iron skillet. And I made that, like I plated it and made it and got to have an experience. I can't do that every day. I'm running a business and I'm running. So there's times where the cooking's like, can somebody just come in and do this for me? Because this is one
Yeah.
more thing I don't
Yeah.
have capacity
To
for.
think about.
But
Yes.
when I
Although
get to do that,
ChatGPT
it's
has
such
been
a
a
joy.
good meal planning friend. ChatGPT is a good meal planning friend. It's such a good mastermind buddy to come back to AI. I think when we see it not as a replacement, but as a research tool and a thought partner,
Mhm.
like it takes my thoughts and makes them better. Or I'll give an example. We have a membership program. We just did a survey. We uploaded the results and asked for a summary and recommendations. Like it is such a great synthesis tool, but it is a creative thinking partner. And Brad was laughing. Brad's my husband because he was sitting there right beside me as we're uploading these survey results and asking for, the summaries. And it strokes me. It's like, oh, this is such a great idea. And oh, Minette, that's so soulful. And oh, what a genius idea, right? It strokes us. Like it learns how we want to be
Uh-huh.
seen. Now
Yeah.
it knows I'm a projector. Who knows how it's going to change because I just put that in there the
Right.
other
Well, it
day.
will. It will definitely give you that feedback and recognition and like, yes, make invitations.
Yeah. And one of my challenges as an artist has always been, as a painter, has been like composition and getting what's in my head. This is, many people that want to create visual art complain like, how do I get what's in my head out of my head and onto paper? So I use AI to help me design a painting. By the time it gets painted, it no longer looks like the AI image, right? So I'm not copying what's there. I'm using it as a jumping off point.
For sure.
And I think about when we think about leadership and growing as leaders, we're growing off the learnings and the teachings of all the leaders that came before us, right? And so there's a great Austinite, Austin Kleon is his name, who has this great book called Steal Like an Artist. There is nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new in leadership either, except for maybe evolved consciousness, which is a whole nother conversation. But in terms of the practicalities of showing up for others, right? There's a lot that's just there, and
Mhm.
we just get to add our flavor. Art is the same. So I think, I until the we got together right before the call, I hadn't thought about these parallels before. But the godfather of creativity coaching is a guy named Eric Maisel who's written over 50 books. He's a character. He
Mhm.
defines purpose as leading a meaningful, values led life.
Mhm.
If I'm leading my own meaningful, values led life and radiating that out for others, others will follow.
Yep.
So by default, I become a leader,
Mhm.
right? Like it doesn't matter what I call myself. If I am sitting with a group of people, I'm a leader.
Yeah.
If I'm facilitating, if I'm holding the space, if I'm running a
Even if
meeting,
I'm living my life on my accord and my terms, I call this your living legacy. Are you intentionally,
yeah,
legacy is not something that happens when we leave. Legacy happens in every breath we
right.
take, every
Yeah.
moment, every way we show up. Sometimes that's just for ourselves because when we
Yeah.
can be the embodiment, when we can be the example for what our lives can look like, how we can tap into curiosity and creativity. We give it's the Marianne Williamson, when we tap into our own light, we unwillingly or unwittingly give others permission to do the same. And so
Yeah.
oftentimes we live in these labels and these boxes and these conditions and well, not often, all the time. We live in this narrative.
Right. Very
Right.
structured,
That when we can free ourselves from that
preconceived.
and be that
Yeah.
expression, we allow
Yeah.
others. And so I think about that, I think about the work that you're doing, Minette, and I think about that you're really diving into some developmental things as well when it
Yeah.
comes to especially women who are going through some of these sort of midlife transitions. I hate the word midlife crisis. Midlife transitions,
It's not a crisis.
it's not, it's an
It's
awakening. I'm
not.
going to just
Yeah.
say for most of us,
100%.
for most women who have been caught in that
Yeah.
narrative, it is one fucking hell of an awakening. It's like, holy shit,
Yeah.
I have power and sovereignty, and I get to. Let's talk a little bit about how you help people navigate through that place and
Yeah.
where, again, creativity and art and what lives inside of that that gives us maybe that permission, that freedom, or that ability to step through it's or over that bridge. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes there's probably a process.
There's always a process. But if you think about, even in the last decade of your 40s, and I've been blessed to witness this with you, how much happened in your life in that one decade. So I'm a decade
Can I
ahead
just
of
take an
you.
exhale?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Right. When I literally sat down and documented everything that happened, good, bad, indifferent, in my 40s and my 50s. I'm like, holy fuck,
Yeah.
right? It's like I lost my beloved stepdad. I moved cross country twice. I changed careers twice. I went through menopause. I graduated kids from high school and now they're out of college. Now I'm in the soup of aging parents and dealing with so much fallout from that because it's the sandwich generation. I am such a prototypical Gen X woman,
Yeah.
right? Who was told I could have it all. Yeah, that's a whole nother story, right?
Another deep
So,
breath.
but I think when we look at the just the sheer physical changes that are happening in our body, and the emotional changes that are happening, right? As we're getting wiser, we're not putting up with as much, we're shedding roles, we're letting go, right? This is not about motherhood. It is about what is happening internally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally at every aspect of our being. It creates not a midlife crisis, an identity crisis and a purpose crisis. So, what I hear over and over again from women in their 40s all the way to their 70s, I don't know who I am and I don't know what my purpose is. And they don't know who they are because all the roles that they played, especially as a caregiver or as a high powered career person, have all fallen away and they don't know what's left. They don't recognize themselves when they look in the mirror. And they're having a crisis of purpose because their purpose has always been related to the role they're playing as opposed to the identity. Who am I being in the world? So the role of art in my world is all about how can I get women out of that very busy, overthinking hamster wheel mind and back into the truth of who they are. There is nothing faster or more powerful for women, especially ones who struggle with spaciousness, with perfectionism, and with the need to be productive, than getting them out of their heads and back into their bodies through art. Because image is the language of the unconscious, not words,
Mm.
right? Image was our first language and it's our last language. When we don't have the capacity to speak, we see color, we see image, we hear sounds, we have the sense of taste. So because we live in a society that makes our head the most important aspect of our being, we've lost our deep connection to our soul's knowing. So midlife is about learning to trust ourselves again, to reconnect to buried parts of ourselves, to give ourselves permission to go on adventures, to learn what it means to be self full rather than selfish. Right. So women are raised, especially my generation, that we either have to be selfless or we're being selfish. No one ever talks about the need, right? Like you get on the airplane, it's a cliche for a reason. You put on your own oxygen mask first. But I like to think of it when our own little inner love cup is full to overflowing. We're giving from the overflow, not from the empty well.
Oh, I say that all the time. I tell, especially my projectors, by the way, who are women, I say,
Everything I say, I've learned the painful
new
way.
mantra for all of you listening. I don't care if you're a projector or not, but especially if you're a projector female. I no longer pour from my cup. Hard stop. I only pour from my saucer going forward. I no longer pour from my cup because one of the
Yeah.
things, and to your point, we need to get out of this idea. And I've had flipped the switch in some ways with people where they're like, it's so selfish of me to put myself first. I said, actually, it's selfish when you don't. It
Yeah.
is selfish when you don't have a full cup because what
Yeah.
you pour into other people is the residual crap and
Yeah.
shit that is burnt out, leftover, exhausted, and looks like hard sludge
Ooh,
growing
like
in a
old
well that no
coffee.
longer works. It's gross, it's funky, and it smells,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So
so
that idea
true.
of when I take care, and this is the energy we're shifting into, even as the collective is moving, where the more of the divine feminine's coming through, even as we talk about it in human design, and we're moving in the cross the sleeping phoenix, February 2027. This energy that's evolving is starting to let us tap into when I take care of me, all
Yeah.
is taken care of. And so
Yeah.
this ability, so the work that you're doing is so critical because you're giving people a pathway and tools
Yeah.
to learn how to take care of them first. So
Yeah. I
that
mean,
cup
for
is
me, art
full and
is
they have a
somatic.
plentiful saucer to pour from.
Yep. Art is somatic therapy, right? Art is
I love that.
physically moving all the energy up and out of our bodies and onto the page. It's releasing all the stories up and out because
Mm.
when they're up and out, we can see them. And when we can see them, we can rewrite them. And when they stay inside of us, they form that sludge like, bad coffee when it sits in a cup for a couple of days, right? And yeah, I know exactly. So I think that there's many, many ways to do this. And what I remember Jennifer Huff saying was that meditation was designed for men, not for women. And there's a reason why so many women struggle with sitting meditation. So in my programs, I talk a lot about deep rest and deep play, which are two essential ingredients to managing our energy. And when we manage our energy, time takes care of itself, right? As a manifesting generator, you are one of the best people I know at managing your energy, right? You know when it's time to retreat. It's a lesson I'm still learning as a projector.
Well, and honestly, I've learned it the hard way because I have
Yeah.
had extreme, because I do have, so that, I mean, you make a great point. I am wired completely differently than Minette. Minette has
Yeah.
a lot of openness in her chart. She is a projector. She needs different ways. She gets in flow differently. Y'all know when I get my switches, those format channels, that defined root kicks in, dude, I'm lighting up four cities. I literally have huge energy. And for somebody that doesn't can't take in that energy, I actually need to inform and let them know that energy is coming so
Mhm.
that they can go do what they either need to tap in, because there's times, and I've been around Minette, and we have a relationship where we can do this, where she'll be like, God, I
Yeah.
feed off that energy, or other times she's
And
like,
then there are
you gotta go
times like,
somewhere else. You
whoa.
gotta go
Yeah.
somewhere else because that's knocking me out. And literally it's like shutting down my circuits to
Yeah.
know that. But when I tap into that big energy and it's not the right switches and I'm trying to force something or I'm doing it because I can, my burnout is
Yeah.
hard. It put me in the hospital in my corporate career. It
Yeah.
literally had me second guessing everything. And it's where I don't get sick very often. But when I do, I'm out for 3 weeks and I would have bronchitis every Thanksgiving during my corporate career because it was when my body said, enough is enough. This is not yours
Yeah.
to carry. Stop lighting up all these switches. You need
Yeah.
a different kind of rest. And so we've got to be able to tap into, and if
Yeah.
you've been a type A, high functioning, lot of energy driven, or you've been a projector who has thought they need to show up like a generator and has been surrounded by people like me who are running like the Energizer Bunny, and you've
Yeah.
convinced yourself you got to keep up, the level of burnout we've
It's
achieved
huge.
in this,
Yeah.
especially in the Western Hemisphere, is like
Yeah.
astronomically off the charts. Our
Yeah.
mental health is so, because our nervous systems, our lymphatic systems, our digestive
Yeah.
systems are completely fried.
Yeah.
that I love that you just said that art is a somatic.
It
It's
is.
a way
It's
to
a powerful way
calm
to
our nervous
move
system back down because we are
or
so
move
out of
energy
our body
out.
right now that
Yeah.
we need practices and tools that
Yeah.
ground us back into
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Yeah.
stillness, and stillness
Yes.
looks different for everybody. I'm somebody that does, in fact, even before this call, I pulled out a coloring book. I need sometimes to be in
Yep.
motion to
S-
meditate because I have
Yeah.
so much energy that it has to do
Same.
something. I need to burn
Hmm.
it off. That
Yeah.
oftentimes doodling and art and just lets me
Yeah.
channel excess energy so that I can be productive in the areas that I need to
This
be.
is how I define deep rest. So people often think rest is sleep. It's not,
Not for me.
right? And there's been so many books that have come out in the last year or two. For me, my definition of deep rest is absence of input.
Mm,
We are so deeply inundated with an onslaught of information coming at us, either by choice or not. Like you can't even go pump gas in the quiet anymore.
mhm,
There's TVs at the gas station. So for me, deep rest is creating a spaciousness where there's no input coming into your brain. And this is the birthplace of your creative genius, is in deep rest and
mhm.
deep play,
Yeah.
right? Not in activity. People think that creative ideas come from doing. They don't. It's why your best ideas come in the shower, when you're driving, like you're not
Or
even
2 in the
thinking.
morning when you don't have all these things overloading your system and you actually can calm things down. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So for me, active forms of rest include art,
Yep.
walking meditation, yoga, cloud gazing,
Yep.
going for a walk or a drive. There are so many ways that we can curate spaciousness and keep our hands busy so our minds can rest.
100%. Like for me, people will come and say, I thought you were resting. I remember taking vacation when I was in corporate, and they're like, oh, are you going anywhere? I'm like, no, I'm having a staycation. They're like, oh, you're just
Yeah,
going to sleep? I'm like, no. I got up and I went hiking for an hour and a half. Then I went kayaking for an hour and a half. Then I biked. They're like, that is not right. I'm like, for me, as a manager with
yeah,
all of my energy, which I didn't know back then, my active
right.
rest or my happy deep rest is a baseball game's going on. I'm cooking in the kitchen. I'm cleaning the house. I'm reading a book. I'm playing with the dog. I've got
Yeah,
music in the background. And somebody's like, how is that? For me, because it's all these ways I just get to release
yeah,
energy. I'm not
right.
having to think about anything. I don't have to, I'm not
Yeah,
required to have a timeline but I get to be in movement and motion and play and
yeah,
ease. And yes. Now, there are some people that deep rest really is you need to sleep or veg out and come
yes.
eat.
But
Trust
for me,
me,
that's
I can look at your
different.
chart and look
Yeah,
at it. For
right.
me, there
Yeah,
are times when I will be still, so to speak. Although my mom's like, even when you watch a movie, you're writing or you're doing. I'm like, because oh my god, who just sits and watches? Like I don't know. I
yeah, I
don't know how to
can't,
do it.
right? Like it's like I mean, I was the person in church that was doodling on the program, right?
Yep, yep.
I have what I fondly call downstairs projects and upstairs projects. So I have a beautiful, huge art studio over here off screen where all my painty, messy projects happen. And then I inevitably end up, much to Brad's chagrin, at the clutter, is there's a project going upstairs. So stitching or practicing drawing,
Yeah, see,
right? I've
mine's
been
cleaning
really
out
into
closets.
stitching.
Closets get cleaned out at least once a month, literally. I have a baseball game
What?
on, music going, and I'm in my closets. I pull everything out, restructure it. To me, that's rest. Oh, it's
Yeah,
joyful. It's joyful to
yeah,
just pull everything out, even though it's all, most of it goes all back in. But every
yeah,
once in a while, there's a piece or two that I'm like, nope, don't want anymore. Or, oh, we're going to spread
yeah.
this out. So happy. So happy.
Yeah, I don't want to clean out my closet. I can make art, right? So, I mean, it's like,
Right.
I
But
think
again, it's
finding
different and there's
it
times
is.
you want to sit and I want to color. Like there's times
Yeah,
I literally have had hand cramps because I will color for
yeah,
8 hours straight on a day because it's just and then I realize that's what I did. And I'm like, whoa, I need to like stretch some things out. I mean, don't get me wrong.
yeah.
I've got the
You got to
bouquet
do
of
your hand
colored
yoga.
pencils in
Yes.
my bouquet.
Nice. Nice. I love it. Yes, I have multiple bouquets around me. So I think, if we pull this back to this idea of aligned leadership, It flows from the same place as our innate creative expression, whether that is art or writing or programming or hiking or whatever, doesn't matter, right? Being a tour guide, a photographer, there's so many, like, I think this to me is the beauty of humanity, is the diversity of forms of creative expression.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. Okay. Who knows why? So, one of my favorite places is the Central Park in Mexico City. And one of the things they sell all over Mexico City, but I just had a flashback to being at the Zocalo in Mexico City, and there is a bucket full of mangoes on sticks with little bits of chili powder on top. And they were cut like exotic flowers. So it looked like this gorgeous bouquet long before what's the edible,
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
is, the company that
yeah,
makes those
right.
gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, this is, it takes me back to the moment and the care and attention that went in to somebody whose livelihood is selling mango on a stick
Which
at the
makes it
sidewalk
actually
in a
taste
park.
better. I'm going to argue, I guarantee when you grab that, because of the
Yeah.
love that was poured into it, it's probably the most succulent, delicious,
Yeah.
gorgeous
Juicy.
tasting fruit you've ever had.
It also has not been on a truck that's traveled miles, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But it's like, I think it's about finding the artistry in the small moments, just like leadership is about finding the connection in the small moments. It's not the standing up on stages or running board meetings or it's about those small moments of connection when you make someone else feel so deeply seen and valued for their contribution. To me, that's leadership.
Yeah, I love that, right? Those moments of expression and connection, or
Yeah,
connection and expression, however you want to say that,
yeah,
right? And I think about, because that's part of it too. We think leadership is this whole ginormous, huge, like, gotta change the world kind of. No, it's about, are you leading from a place of
yeah,
integrity? Are you showing up? I mean, we talk about it
yeah.
all the time. Leadership's a function of three things, right? Like, leadership is how you choose to show up, how you choose to
Hmm.
serve, how you choose to take personal responsibility. And I think about part of that responsibility and part of that showing up and your service comes in
Yeah,
how you choose to express yourself, how you,
yeah,
and are you expressing yourself based on a old tired narrative of, well, you got to build a funnel,
yeah. Top
you got to do
down.
that, or are
Yeah,
you expressing from a place of your own joy,
yeah,
your own magic, doing it because it lights you up for no other reason? The best art is the art that speaks to the soul of the artist,
yeah.
that has no rhyme, reason, whether it's dark, whether it's open. It's an expression of your truth, your heart, your soul.
Yeah.
Those are the salient, sustainable ways that leadership, creativity, artistry, all of that has
Comes
legs
together.
underneath it,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
the parallels run.
Yeah, I would add a fourth leg to that definition of leadership. It's how you receive feedback,
Yeah, that's true too.
right? Because for me, the best leaders are the leaders I've learned the most from were also the ones who were most vulnerable
Yeah,
and
100%.
open to receiving feedback,
100%, right?
which
And
is
being able to,
sorely lacking
talking
right
about,
now.
like, bring Brene Brown in,
Yeah,
knowing that not all feedback is good and knowing how to
yeah,
discern
yeah,
when you're ready for feedback, being open to all the feedback, and then deciphering and discerning which feedback feels aligned.
right.
There's a
Useful.
responsibility in that. You don't just get to have
Yeah,
people shit all over you either.
no,
I mean, I'm curious.
yes.
I asked this when Joyce was on, Joyce Martyr, and I want to ask you
Hmm.
this too because I feel very compelled. What do you think humanity's biggest opportunity is right now?
Love.
Hmm. I love that that was an easy response for you. I really love
Like
that that was an easy
it's,
response for you.
we complicate the fuck out of it.
You think?
Right? I mean, it's just what happened to, and I don't know if it's ever been true in humanity if you think about I mean, wars since the dawn of time, but for me, the biggest opportunity for humanity is looking across the screen, across the table, across the sidewalk, and meeting the other person through the eyes of love and
I love
presence and
that.
non-judgment.
Yeah. And the only thing I would offer to that, because I've been on my sort of soapbox, is can we not? look across the table? Can we just burn the fucking tables and stop building more tables and come together in
For
circle?
those of us that love dinner parties with our
Well, I was
friends,
gonna say, but I always say the caveat. Here's the thing. The only time a table serves is when we come into communion and there's food being served on the table.
yeah, I was going to
We
say, so
need
we're
to come
talking the
we
kitchen
need to come
table.
into circles and community where
Yes,
we don't
agreed.
have things blocking.
Yeah,
So many times the table creates a
yes,
barrier because
agreed.
people don't let themselves be fully open. Now, every
Yeah,
table that's got food on, invite me to. They're great.
yes,
But I'm talking about those
yeah,
tables where we need
agreed.
to, because I do think if we're going to step into that
Yeah,
energy of
energy.
love, we
Hmm.
stop putting a fucking barrier between us and we allow
Yeah,
ourselves to be fully seen, fully vulnerable, and we close the distance
yeah,
between our hearts.
yeah. And I'm not saying it's easy. You're not saying it's easy. It's hard. It's so hard. Like,
I
it's
swear,
so
I use
hard
these words
not to
because
see difference.
my buck per capita or per day has like, especially in
You're
life
over the
going
per
on, I
capita.
need
I
new
know.
swear words to use that can
Yeah.
like express the
I don't
magnitude.
know. Maybe we just need to like learn a whole bunch of swear words in other languages, right?
Well,
It's
I can swear in Italian and Spanish. I can do a couple. So there we go. But yes, but again, there's also, and I would also offer for some of you that get wound up because I swear too much. Guess what? It's also called creative expression. And there
yeah.
are scientists that have proven that because I say fuck freely, I am far more grounded and open in
Hmm.
my body than some of you that are whitely town or
Yeah.
wound. I didn't say that the right way.
Yeah.
Just say.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, and I mean it's boundaries, right? It's like, I mean, I feel like so many people are an exploding peg of gunpowder
for sure.
because they're holding on to everything,
Yep.
right? And it's because there aren't places to share without tables, right? Which is why I'm such a huge fan of the work of Parker Palmer and his circles of trust, which are all about coming together and learning to speak to the circle, not to talk at each other, but
Yeah.
how do we just be with, like truly be with each other rather than be at each other or against each other.
Yeah. Oh, that just makes me think about when we were part of that community and we were in
Yeah.
Vancouver doing Minette and I got really close after getting cracked open and
Yeah.
really raw in a spiritual retreat that we were at that really was a game changer on so many levels.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of us staying at an Airbnb that got oversold and wasn't sold to us in the right way. And there was a lack of bedrooms. So I ended up camping out in Minette's walk-in closet in the bedroom
It
that
was
we
so
had.
huge.
And it
The
was
closet was
huge.
so
And it
huge.
literally, for my design, I'm just going to tell you, was
Yeah.
probably the most calming thing for my nervous system. First of all, being
Yeah.
in Minette's energy and feeling safe, but also having a cave that I could bring my nervous system back into what it needed for regulation. But the ability to be in that space with you and
Yeah.
really be seen, because I do think, to your point, we don't have enough spaces where we really see each other and don't just talk
Yeah.
at each other or over each other. And that was for me one of the most profound, just truly soft heart, wide open ability to
Mhm.
be seen and be held and not
Yeah.
and leave everything else outside of that space. And so
And by a leader who's so got that, right? So his capacity for making each and every person in the room feel seen
yeah. Well, and
and
then you and
safe
I got to
and
take that
safe
back and create
and
that. Like
practice.
there was,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful way to say that. We got to practice that
Yeah.
when
I
we
mean, we got to
started.
practice in the dojo on the where I got all her energy coming at me. We had to practice in the closet where, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, there's
But we
safety
got
and
to just like
separation.
quiet out the world and be
Yeah.
present. That was
Yeah.
one of my really first, honest to God, just full moments of seeing and feeling and resonating with presence. And
Yeah.
it was such a gift that you offered it. And I know that that's a gift you offer with the people that you work with in your workshops and in the way that you do your work. And so I just wanted to comment on that because that you bring that presence to
Thank
everything you
you.
do.
And I'm so grateful because that weekend was such a huge part of my capacity to hold that, right? Or, I think it's something I've always been able to do, but I got to own it. kind of
Yeah,
like
you for
leadership, kind
sure.
of
There
like
was an
artistry.
ownership that came, but
Yeah.
that is one of your gifts. Your gifts to hold that presence, to hold that ability for people to break down the imaginary tables
Mhm.
and let themselves be held and seen is really that's a gift that is really
Thank
unique
you.
to yours. You do that so powerfully and beautifully. And so I know had multiple occasions where I get to experience that. And so for those of you that would love to be able to tap into that brilliance, into that magic of what Minette offers, what is the best way they can connect with you and reach out and plug into that?
I would say just go to my website. I'm easy to find, MinetteRiordan.com. One time my aunt was trying to find my phone number. She says, "You're really easy to find online." I'm like, great. So, and we have a really fun quiz. If you are a woman in midlife and you are in that phase of trying to understand where you're at and what are the developmental milestones that you're experiencing, if you want some more archetypal language around the journey that you're on, we have a really fun quiz called What's Your Midlife Archetype? And I will make sure that's in the show notes for Candy. So to take a look at that because I think that if I can add a quick line to the beautiful conversation around leadership, it's that women in midlife are the best leaders for so many reasons because we are finally owning our own power. We're letting go of roles that we played. We don't give any more fucks. I love to say fuck too. And there's this sense of reliance on wisdom, and yet there is no slice of the population that feels more invisible than a 50, 60, 70-year-old woman.
Yep. Yeah. And
And men as well. I would say men in retirement as well. It's
that
like all of a
transition,
sudden
especially the Gen Xers, it's a big,
it
big,
is
and
from
there's an
positions of leadership
opportunity.
to
Yeah.
retirement is a hard, hard path. And that's my sweet spot where I love to help people rediscover what's possible
Well,
in
and
those
I think about
post-retirement
that because a
years.
lot of what I do is helping people awaken, activate, and amplify their voice. And
Yeah,
you do that so beautifully by helping them tap into how to
yeah,
express what has been, in many cases, crying or screaming
yes.
silently on the inside that
Hmm.
you, on some level, have always known has wanted to be expressed, but you've not
Yeah,
given yourself permission.
yeah, pull that back out again.
You help
Yeah,
them make that transition in their
hmm,
transition, right? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and remember you're valuable. Just because you're not in a career anymore doesn't mean you've lost your inherent
No, be
sense of
grateful.
worth.
The label's gone. You're free. You're
Yeah.
free. Why the freaking fuck? You're free.
Go play, go play, go play, get some
Oh,
hobbies.
right.
Yeah, I
So,
love it.
Annette, with that, as we bring everything full circle and close, is there something, one last thing you'd love to leave the audience with before we close out today? And I hope you'll come back. Let me just put that
Of
in there.
course, I'll come back. I'm honored to be asked. If there's anything I want to leave you with, it's like, what is the thing that is undone? Like you said, Wayne Dyer, right? Don't die with the music inside of you. What's your music?
Yeah.
Like, if you did nothing else but have fun and get curious about finding that music, it will make your life better and it will make the world a richer place to hear your music.
Yeah, I think that right there is so amazing and such a great way to end because if you are struggling to tap into your creativity, your passion, your next, curiosity
Yeah,
is the way
it
to
is.
unlock all of it. Get
Yeah,
curious. What are you curious about? Lean into that. And so with that, Minette, I love you. I don't have to
I
tell
love
you.
you
You
too.
know I love you,
Uh,
but I want to say that because I love you and I
that's all right. I
know
receive.
how much I love you and I love you and my heart is exploding and I'm
Yeah,
so thrilled that your art is in a gallery. God, that
thank
fucking
you.
makes me so happy. And
Thank you.
I am so grateful that you just shared your heart, your brilliance, your just energy, your light with us today. And
Ernie, hi, sweetheart.
Ernie's
He's
like,
like, okay, mama, it's my turn for attention.
and
Awesome. I
he
love
wants
you.
to send you
Mwah.
love too. So
Yeah.
thank you so much,
Thanks.
my friend, for being here.
Thanks for
For
having
all of you
me.
who are listening, please know that we thank you for being here on this journey with us. If you haven't already subscribed, leave a review. So many more brilliant powerhouses and light workers are going to be in these conversations. But it is all to have these conversations we need to be having. So with that, everybody know, mwah, I love you. This is our time to be aligned as fuck. So go out, share your magic, express yourself, and please, please, please connect with Minette. Thank you, everybody, for being here.